Okay, hello YouTube. I've been debating making this video for literally weeks. I still don't know if I should make this video. And that's not to say I don't want to shout what I'm about to say from the rooftops. It's more that it's a big vulnerable share and the internet is mean and judgy. But honestly, at this point, I've already put so much of myself out there that fuck it. Here we go. Originally, this was supposed to be a vlog. Many of you will remember that a few months ago I shared a Miami vlog when I took a bit of an impromptu trip to Miami, and I was basically going to do round two because a few weeks back I took another trip. I won't say impromptu because this time it was planned, but I took another trip to Miami. Well, let me roll the video footage that I did take. Here we go. Good morning, world. It is very early. I'm coming to you from the Cayman airport at about 5 a.m. About to board my plane in like an hour and a half. I'm going back to Miami. There's a big story here, and this video is going to be a little bit more of a storytelling video than my usual ones, so bear with me because this is not what I usually do. I'm branching out a little bit. I hope you can hear me because it's really echoey in here. They're doing renovations and I don't want to talk too loud. Literally everyone can hear me. It's a small airport. But yeah, I'm going to tell you guys the story of what happened on my last trip to Miami and why I'm going back again so soon, and who you're about to meet. So stay tuned.
Miami, Florida. In command of your flight is Captain Olson Anderson. He is assisted by First Officer Brian Seals. We ask that all babies are safely in infant seatbelt extensions for departure. Into the buckle. To adjust, pull on the loose end of the strap.
So, at this point, I put my camera down and never took it out once on the entire rest of the trip. What kind of vlogger am I? Fail. It was a big fail. I know it was a big, hard, ugly fail. Trust me. But in my defense, I do not regret anything. I regret no decisions that I made on this trip, including forgetting / deciding not to film for vlog footage. And I'm going to explain why. See, this is the story of how I met the love of my life. Okay, I try not to script my videos too hard, but this is one of those things that I knew I wanted to not screw up the storytelling of. And I'm not used to storytelling / storytime videos or sharing a lot with a lot of people in general. There are a few people who I've told parts of this story to. You could even say the majority has been told to certain people in my life, but to give so many details from beginning to end, this is new to me, so I wrote everything down because I love to write. I don't share a lot of my writing, so I've never put out a lot of articles or blog posts or anything like that, but I do write a lot. And I wrote this story down because it was an easier way for me to get it across. So what I'm going to do is basically make this a story time video, literally reading the story that I wrote. How embarrassing. but I just felt it would be a little more fluid if I wrote it down rather than tried to remember all details on the fly in front of the camera, because it's still weird to me talking to a camera. Yeah, so please excuse me while I read to you the story of how I met Fred. I guess here we go. Wow. So yeah, this is the story of how I met the love of my life. And at least that's what it was supposed to be. As I mentioned, my plan was to tell the story while sharing footage from this trip, since this particular trip was actually specifically to go and see him. And I was going to end the video by revealing him and introducing you to him and actually having him in the vlog. But then I got so excited and distracted when I first saw him, and I completely ignored all of my video taking plans. So yeah, after getting settled in, I guess I just wanted to give him all of my time and attention and snapped no video footage, except for some Instagram videos and lots of pictures. So I will be trying to make it a more interactive story time by sharing some of that footage and photos with you guys. I apologize for any vertical footage. It's a pet peeve of mine too, but desperate times call for desperate measures, friends. Anyways, so with that said, I'm still gonna share this story because I'm very in love and he's gonna be a big part of my life. And there may be some changes in my content and in a lot of things in the future. We'll talk more about that later, I guess, but for now, here's the story of how I met Fred. So, let's take a trip back in time, and we're going to talk for a second about June of this year. As my subscribers and any regular viewers or people who have been around since I started my channel back around that time would know, June was the month when I picked up my life and moved from Ontario, Canada to where I currently am, Grand Cayman, Cayman Islands in the Caribbean. I wasn't doing so well in Canada for the past year before that, though I know well is something that's subjective. I had a solid career, a beautiful apartment, I had a nice car, I had all the things that society tells us we should have that will make us happy, but I wasn't happy. Even worse, I became really down on myself over the course of last winter. So nobody seemed to understand why. Even I completely didn't understand why. I had it all handled, so what was there to feel restless or upset about? But that's exactly how I felt. I wasn't feeling like I was missing anything per se, but I knew that I could squeeze more out of my life. I was in my comfort zone. And while your comfort zone is a very safe place to be, it's not always the most productive place to be. I mean, what does playing it safe ever really get you in life, you know? It gets you nothing new, usually. It gets you nowhere new, and it makes your life kind of mundane, in my opinion. So as much as I was comfortable, I didn't want to get stuck in that life that I was living. Not in that particular routine. It was sometime in December when I committed to the decision to leave my Canadian life behind and start fresh back on my home isle here in Grand Cayman. I didn't know what a future in the islands would have in store for me, and well, to be honest, that was probably part of the attraction. So I started selling all of my things and preparing my dog's import paperwork to get ready for the move. In March, I quit my job, which gave me a little time to focus on the move without my daily commute taking up my time and attention. And in June, I finally took the leap. I packed up my clothes, or whatever clothes were left after I sold a huge majority of my wardrobe. I packed up my dog, and I got on a plane with the intentions of spending the next few years, at the very least, on this little rock in the Caribbean. So I know this doesn't sound like a love story so far, but please stay with me. I promise I'm getting there. Just before leaving Canada, I interviewed for and accepted a job for a high-end jewelry sales store here in the islands. I only had a short time before my departure date when I accepted the job, so it didn't quite leave me enough time to have my work permit processed. Basically, this means that I'd have to leave the island for a few days to have the permit processed once they received all of my paperwork. A vacation wasn't in the budget after just having taken a 2-month break from work, and I really didn't want to fly all the way back to Canada. So I reached out to some family in Miami, and they were happy to give me a place to crash for a few days. I was super excited because that meant I would get to reconnect with 2 of my cousins who I hadn't seen in like 15 years. It sounded like they were having the same thoughts since they both reached out to me the day before my flight, trying to make plans for what we could do when I got there. One of my cousins, Julian, asked me if I wanted to go go-karting with him and some of his friends the night I arrived. So I was basically like, hell yeah, and that's what we did. Jules picked me up that evening. He mentioned that he was also going to be picking up one of his friends on the way. I wasn't completely paying attention when we stopped. I think I might have been messing around with my phone or something. But I do remember hearing Jules greet someone and introduce me by name. And I'll never forget that moment when I looked up and saw that big, beautiful grin looking back at me through the car window. That's how I met Fred. Now, since we're already here, and since I've already told you this much of the story, I guess I may as well get you all the way caught up to present day and tell you how I fell in love with him, and how things have taken off since that first moment. So I guess I should admit right off the bat that I obviously was crushing on him from the very first second. I've been so adamantly single for so long, and I didn't expect to even meet anyone on this trip, so I guess the feels caught me by surprise, and I actually let myself feel them. After a night of go-karting, laughing, and hanging out in general with the guys, I really knew that I liked him, and I don't get that feeling ever. So I knew I had to do something. I knew I was in trouble. But I hesitated. I was still feeling adamantly single, and I hesitated. I knew I had the chance to make a move that night, and I didn't. And except for a few brief moments here and there, I didn't really have a chance to spend a whole lot of time with Fred again before I left Miami, and before I got on a plane. But I knew, I guess after thinking about it, sleeping on it, that I couldn't just leave without trying. I had to do something. I mean, I even told my cousin that I was crushing on him, and that's saying something for me. I don't tell anyone anything about how I'm feeling. Like, maybe my very best friend, maybe my sister, but the fact that I went straight to my cousin, who I hadn't seen in like 15 years and was just reconnecting with, and was like, yo, I have a big crush on your friend. Like, that was one, very unlike me, and two, a pretty big deal. So, on my last night in Miami, I asked my cousin if I could borrow his phone and send a text from it. I think he 100% knew what I was up to, and he said yes, and so I took his phone and I sent a text message to Fred, basically just saying like, I really enjoyed meeting you, and I would like to stay in touch, and I hope you feel the same way. And then I gave Julian his phone back, and I spent the rest of the night sweating. I was stressing hard. I didn't know if like I did the right thing, or if I was being too forward, or if he even liked me back. Like, I was kind of making some assumptions, but I just couldn't leaving it completely unsettled and not saying that I at least tried, because like I said, I never had feels for anybody. I'm not that person that like meets a guy and is just like, oh, he's wonderful. So I had to act on it. I had to do something. Like I keep saying, I had to do something. So that was what I did. So I spent the whole night wondering if I did the right thing, and the next morning my flight was super early, so I didn't even have time to check my phone or anything. I got to the airport, got on the plane, flew home, and lo and behold, I land in the islands to see a text message from Fred when I turned my phone back on. I could go into detail about what he said and what I said and how the conversation started, but at the end of the day, as they say, the rest is history. And we started talking that day, and we literally never stopped since. It started with text messages, constant texting back and forth, and pretty quickly, I think not even a few days later, we started phone calls daily, and it wasn't too long after that when video calls became a part of the mix, and we just have spent every day talking to each other and like getting to know each other on every single level, and we clicked immediately. He very quickly became the best part of my everyday. I don't think I could tell you exactly when I fell in love with him. It might have been the moment that I met him, but it all happened very quickly and very naturally. It actually happened so naturally that we realized like many weeks later that we hadn't even set a date when we like were official. That, you know, it wasn't like, okay, we're boyfriend and girlfriend now. There was a conversation that we had to scroll way back in our text message conversation months later when a good friend asked, you know, when did you guys, what's your like date? When did you like officially start dating? We had to scroll so far back into like the first week of our conversation to discover the date when we kind of both said, you know, I'm not going to be seeing anybody else. Like, I want you. I'm into you. And that was something that it's so funny, even that reading that conversation back was super like, we don't even need to say this type of thing. Like, we both knew that we were committed to each other, even though we had just met, we had never kissed, we had only talked and talked and talked and talked. But I guess, again, as they say, when you know, you just know. I mean, our relationship just flows effortlessly. And that's not to say we don't put in effort. I know we both try our best every single day to make ourselves the best that we can be for each other. He wants to be the best partner that he can be for me, and I am attempting to be my absolute best self for him. And so we both put a ton of effort into this relationship, especially because it is long distance. And you need to foster that and cultivate that really carefully in order to make it work. But it feels effortless. It's not like I feel forced to try to do things or make myself available for calls or put my life on hold for him in any way. But it feels effortless when he calls and I just pick up and we chat for hours. It just feels natural. And it feels right. Anyways, now I'm getting off on a tangent. So where did I leave off with the story? Okay, I don't think even 2 months passed before I had bought another plane ticket and was preparing myself to come on this next trip, the one that this video was supposed to be about. So back to Miami I went, ditching my brand new job and my brand new life to spend another week with this guy. I mean, I had agreed to go back and visit with my cousins again after leaving on the first trip. I think it was even the day I left or the night before. We had made an agreement as cousins that we were going to try to get together again in 3 months at the very latest. But when all of this happened, it just became a lot more apparent that I needed to extend that trip and spend some real one-on-one time with Fred, getting to basically live together and give this a real go, I guess. Getting to actually kiss the person that I started a relationship with and, actually hug them and feel like a real couple, and not just like an internet couple. So I extended my trip. Luckily, my very awesome new boss understood and was like, yeah, take the time, go do what you want to do. So I extended the trip and I went to see my man and my cousins. I mean, let's be honest, the trip had very quickly become about Fred. So I got on a plane and I went to go see my man. And I couldn't have been more excited. I mean, I was cultivating this incredible emotional connection with someone who I had never even kissed, but who I had a much crazier, much more intense and important connection with than anybody who I have ever kissed in the past. I needed him in my arms, and I knew that once I had him there, I'd never want to let him go. So the countdown was on. I bought my ticket, plans were made, and I was ready to go on the plane. This is where we left off with the beginning of this video. I guess we're caught up. My second flight to Miami. The day I got to see him again. In the clips that I did get, I probably looked more tired than anything, but I know my mind was racing through all of the feels at that particular moment. I was nervous, excited, impatient, and just pretty overwhelmed in general. It all felt like it was finally becoming real, but also like it was too good to be true at the same time. But I had to take the leap to find out, so I got on the plane. My heart was racing so fast when I landed, and I could only hope that nobody would notice how nervous I was, because goodness knows I have had much bigger problems with US Customs and they have stopped me for less. So I was very glad that nobody noticed my suspicious sweating and nervousness when really I was just super excited to see Fred and to get to wrap my arms around him for pretty much the first time as a couple. But with no issues, I made it out of the terminal, thank goodness. And there he was, on the other side of the arrivals door, waiting for me, in all of his too good to be true glory. My Fred. He was there, and he was real, and it was real, and he was mine. And in that moment, the whole airport and everyone in it disappeared from around us, as I wrapped my arms around him. We must have stood there for several minutes, kissing and embracing, and kissing again. In hindsight, I'm actually kind of surprised that neither of our bags got jacked, but I'll never forget that moment. It was absolute magic. We had finally made it back to each other. Alright, now I'm getting way beyond cheesy at this point, so I'm gonna stop. But, I mean, it's easy to get cheesy when I'm talking about Fred. I'm just crazy about him. I don't know. Okay, trying to stop. Toning down the cheese. Cheese level's coming down. Anyways, at the risk of too much cheese and at making this video extremely long, I won't go into too much more detail about the week with him. It was somewhat private anyways, and like I said, I was really glad that I didn't end up filming because we got a lot of one-on-one time and we got to get to know each other really on a deep level and got to connect. And yeah, I'm getting cheesy again. Okay, but I do want to share some photos, so I've included a lot in this video and I'll include some more here. And I do want to share some of my advice and some lessons that I've learned about love, and specifically long distance love. First, I just want to say that what you always hear people say about love is true. And I said this earlier, that when you know you found the one, you just know. And following that thought, I want to say that if you do find the one, and if they are nearly as kind, loving, hilarious, intelligent, charismatic, faithful, understanding, and dedicated as my wonderful boyfriend is. Don't you dare let them go. It doesn't matter how many hundreds of miles separate you, how much people do or don't understand or support your relationship. And it definitely doesn't matter what the societal rules of dating say you should or shouldn't do. Fight for them. Stay true to them. Be honest with them. And don't play games. Be faithful and committed and true. Because if you find someone that has even a fraction of the qualities that my Fred has, you've found a real treasure. So cherish them, because someone like that deserves nothing less than the best. So that's what I strive to be every day for my man. And with that thought, I'm asking you to join me on this crazy new journey. I don't know where this is going to take me, but obviously my plans to stay on the island for several years means pretty much nothing to me now. Things in my life are about to change again, and I can only hope that you'll join me for this next wild ride. I will try to keep some of my content the same, as you guys may already be seeing or will be seeing soon, depending on when I decide to release this video. A lot of that theme park content is still an area that I'm exploring. There will be vlogs anytime I'm going away. I promise I'll film next time, as well as more regular vlogs here on the island. So long as I'm here, that's going to be a part of it. And I do hope to start visiting more theme parks again soon. I know there was a lot of Wonderland content earlier this year, and there's been a big gap in that, but as I continue to go back to Florida more and more, I hope to definitely get to be exploring and sharing with you guys a lot of theme park content in the future. So for right now, while where I end up going long term is a mystery that I'm very excited to unfold, I hope that you join me and get to experience this with me as I continue on this crazy life path, only with Fred by my side. So that's it. Your girl's in love. And that's it for this video. Holy smokes, I can't believe I'm sharing this. I would normally be like, like this video and subscribe and share your thoughts down below, but I just want to like curl up and hide and not know what anybody thinks about this video. Okay? Bye! See you next time!